Welcome everyone. This is our interview sessions with our guest Ashish Yadav. Ashish is a robotic software engineer and is presently in Netherlands working with Microshore, a medical device company. Welcome to YouWah, Ashish.
Hey, welcome Abhilasha. Hello.
It was nice. Thank you so much for giving time to us for this interview, Ashish, with the busy schedule of yours.
Oh no, no worries. I really like the platform and I really like what you guys are putting into. So if I can contribute in any way, I'm happy to. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much. So, starting with the interview, Ashish, it would be nice if you walk us back through your school days.
Okay, that's been a long time back. I basically studied in an English medium Christian school at the time for let's say 7 to 8 years. I graduated from Kendriya Vidyalaya back in Rajasthan. Uh, So yeah, 8 years in a Christian school and the last 2 years in Kendriya Vidyalaya was basically my schooling.
So, what stream did you take back then? I mean, how did you decide upon the stream that you wanted to take?
So I was pretty good at maths, which kind of make me realize that I want to be an engineer. My sister was a doctor at the time, so and I was really not into, let's say, operating people. So I was really not into the person who can operate on people. I was a bit sensitive on my side, so that's why I went for the choice to become an engineer. I did some tuitions back then. I think for my high school, a year tuition for maths and science. I think it was kind of trendy back then. I'm not sure how it is right now, but uh, yeah. So I went for both science and maths. I like physics and I like electrodynamics, and kind of chose the same way in the engineering stream.
So, you were like the bright student.
I was an average student during the entire school year, but my results were pretty good. So that kind of shocked everyone. Like my teachers would often tell me that they didn't expect me to score as good as I did, which was partly because I was attending everything. Let's say I was a student who was going to every class, and I kind of knew what the teacher would teach, and I kind of knew what would come in the exam. So I was kind of that oriented towards in my school year. So I kind of bagged a lot of, let's say, scores without even like reading the entire school year. So my attentiveness in class kind of made me a good person to score good marks.
My goodness, that's wonderful. So, apart from the tuitions that you took and the attentiveness in the class, were there any other external sources that you used to prepare for your examinations, like any online portal or something?
For board examination at that time, the online portals were not that famous. So we kind of stuck to the more comprehensive books like R.D. Sharma for maths and other books like foreign books for science. NCRT books back then were pretty good. So for at least for the board examinations, we stuck to NCRT books. And for a lot of theory and practice, we went around to books like R.D. Sharma and physics books, which were written by foreign authors.
Okay, so for the higher studies, firstly tell me this thing, did you take a gap year after your class 12?
Yeah, I took a break here in Quota at Bansal classes, mainly to prepare for JE at that time.
And how did it go? Like, you were in the prestigious Vellore Institute of Technology. How did you come to know about that college?
Uh, Kind of, I was focused on JE. My dad kind of did the research for VIT because he was like, you have to play a bit safe as well. You can't just go all in on JE and expect it to work out. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to care for it. But if you want me to apply to some of the safe colleges, I'll do that. And that's why he came home one day with this brochure of a beautiful university with a beautiful campus. And they were about to introduce a new system, which was not there in India at that time, which kind of made me look, okay, it's not that it's not IIT, but it's a good institute which is trying to do something really innovative at the time. So that's why I chose for VIT. Before that, I didn't actually knew someone from VIT, so it was like I could not ask someone for the opinion. So uh, yeah, it was based on the information my dad gathered and the information I could gather online, which made me apply for VIT.
It's actually the platform, that YouWah is actually working on this only, that how, the social circle plays an important role in deciding upon where you have to go, which
Yeah, yeah,
kind of,
yeah, true.
has come up from your, which you've shared with us. So do you remember anything about the admission procedure, since it's way back? So if anything little that you remember.
Yeah, they have a same examination like IIT or IEEE. They call it VIT Triply. You can apply after graduating from high school until I think 3 years. So from 12 plus 3 years, you can apply to VT. You can even, I think, they also accept quota. They have different quotas since it's a private institution. So people who do not get a good rank can apply for those quota seats to get, let's say, a branch of what they really want to study, rather than being forced to study something which they don't like just because they couldn't qualify in the exam. So that's also something you can do in VIT.
And what kind of quotas do they have? Is it anything?
They have state quotas, they have private quotas, they have yeah, same disability quotas. They also have quotas if you have some referrals from outside universities. So if you have done something outside, they also have places where you can apply through the examination.
Wonderful. Yeah. So now coming to your course, how did you decide upon the specialization or the variety of courses that were being offered?
Yeah, so let's say I chose electrical and electronics engineering at VIT, just solely based on the fact of what my strong suit was in during my graduation from high school. I really loved electrodynamics, and I really loved mathematics, and kind of made me realize mechanical is not something I really want to do, because the subjects that I was taught before that were not really uh, uh, bringing the creative side of me. So in the end, based on what I liked in high school, kind of chose why I chose electrical and electronics.
So what you had imagined the course would provide to you, did it do justice?
It never does justice. It's always you have to find a fair balance of what you would want to get out of the course and what the course actually wants to get out of you in a way. So it's a deal, and you kind of trade off in a positive way to see where which path leads to what you actually join to start with.
So, Ashish, is there any way you can tell us what the course actually comprises of? As in, when one walks out of the, with a degree, what is one supposed to know after that?
Yeah, so at that time they introduced this really interesting FFCS system. It's called a fully flexible credit system. It's a system where you had the choice. The student had the choice of choosing their own subjects at the time they want, so morning or evening or afternoon, with the professor they want to study with. So it was not there anywhere else. Kind of made me uh, choose VIT for kind of that, because I thought that the traditional way of teaching was not really for me. So that's why I went for this FFCS system in VIT. So that was quite nice, because you had the freedom to choose the subjects you want to study, except from the core subjects that you had to study. All the elective courses can be chosen at the time you want, and with the professor you want. And when I say with the professor you want, is also because in VIT there was two types of learning systems. There was project-based evaluation, and there was traditional exam-based evaluation. So that kind of made a difference, because when you go for a professor who's more into a project-based evaluation, you get evaluated at the end of at the end of the course based on what you actually did in form of a project or in form of something that's working, by putting in the theory that you learn in class. So that was quite good for me, because I wanted to, I really, one of the decisions I wanted to be an engineer was to get my hands dirty very fast. Because if you go for, like, let's say economics, or if you go for in the medical sector, you have to study a lot of years before you can actually get your hands dirty on something you really have studied. And being an engineer kind of gives you a push, because you can right from the start, once you have the basic know-how of what you're doing, you can start implementing stuff. And that's where VIT kind of helped me as well.
So, this system of choosing your professor and the course and the timings, does it still exist?
Yeah, I think so, because it was pretty famous 4 years back then, and I talked to a lot of juniors who are still there. So yeah, it's working pretty fine actually.
That's very wonderful. Yeah, that's something very unique.
Yeah, that's true. They kind of copied it from the Australian credit system, and because they have a lot of international tie-ups, and it kind of worked because the students were loving the whole system.
Thank you for sharing this. This is very nice. Tell me something. Right after completion of your bachelor's degree, what are the career opportunities for students?
So VIT is pretty famous for mass recruitments. Like I think once a year in the paper, you see how many recruitments VIT has, and it's not in hundreds, it's basically in thousands. But core placement was still a huge deal back then, because only a few companies actually came for R&D jobs in the campus. And only the people who were pretty good at uh, exam-based evaluation were the ones who were cracking those first rounds of research and development job works, let's say. So you have a lot of software companies coming in for recruitments. You have some R&D companies coming for R&D jobs, and the rest of the crowd would either go for GATE or GRE. So it's a mix of what opportunities are there after completing the degree.
So, I suppose you haven't taken a gap year between your undergrad and your postgrad, right?
No, I didn't had to prepare much, let's say, because the whole 3 years I was kind of working in a project-based evaluation way. And when I saw that when you apply to universities abroad, you can actually use them to enhance your statement of purpose and what you want to accomplish. So that kind of led me to not take a gap year to prepare for where I wanted to be.
So here, for the people who will watch us, I'll make a special mention that you've done your masters from Eindhoven University of Technology, Netherlands, which is ranked 120th best in the world and 44th best in Europe in the QS World University Ranking 2021. Yeah,
Uh,
is that so? I checked on
yeah,
the university website.
Yeah, it keeps on changing every year depending on how the company collaboration of the universities, how many papers are being published. So it's a good university overall. It depends on which course you're going for. So your specialization kind of matters when you apply for an institute. And for control systems, it's one of the one of the best universities in Europe. And that was one of the reasons I chose for TU Eindhoven.
So, when did you come to know about this institute? As in, like you said, you did not have to prepare much, but then there must have been a lot of other universities also in your mind.
Uh, yeah, let's say once so in order to apply for master courses abroad, you need to do a English proficiency test, TOEFL or IELTS, and sometimes you have to give GRE. So once I had those scores, I kind of my minors, my specialization in bachelor's was mainly on control systems. So I looked for some colleges which were really good, academically good in control systems engineering, which is kind of the foundation for robotics. So I found some of, let's say, two colleges which were I thought out of my league, and I applied to two colleges, let's say, which were on the safer side, but still a very good institute for control systems engineering. So a lot of online sitting, a lot of talking with seniors who are abroad, going to forums and reading about their experiences online and how it has been. So that was like 2-3 months of packed information that you have to get it out from the internet. So let me go back to why I actually chose for a master's abroad, and then I'll tell a bit more about how I ended up at Eindhoven. So as I told, I was mostly involved in project-based evaluation during my bachelor study at VIT. So it kind of got me a lot of hands-on experience on projects, big projects and small projects. So when I went to some placements that were happening in the company, they were too theoretical for my aptitude. And the same when I went for GATE preparation, I felt that it was a bit, it was totally theoretical and with a lot of proofs and hypotheses. And the work I actually did during the last 3.5 years was not gonna be used if I apply for GATE or if I sit for a company placement. So that kind of made me realize that I do not have much options in that sense, since I went for a project-based evaluation right from the start. Then I got in touch with some friends who told me that there are colleges abroad that actually give scholarships to people who have worked in a project-based evaluation sort of form. Yeah, even though at that time I knew that the chances were very few to finally bag a scholarship, but I'm like, okay, why not? At least I can try. So I applied to two colleges, which at the time I thought were out of my league, and two safe colleges, as I had learned from VID that, let's say, you need to have a couple of safe ones, but still good at the same time for the specialization that I wanted to do. So I got two acceptances, one from the out of league college. So I got accepted to Imperial College in London, but without a scholarship. So that was pretty expensive because when I calculated in Indian currency, it would come around to be 50 lakhs a year, and because of the living expenses in London are quite expensive. And then at the same time, I got, after a month or so, I got acceptance from Eindhoven University with the note that I might get a scholarship and might not get a scholarship. So because the scholarship procedure was after the admission procedure. And 15 days later, I heard that given my project-based evaluation, they would like to offer me a scholarship, which kind of made a very nice decision for me. And in the end, an easy decision for me to choose where I would want to end up for doing a master's.
Wonderful, yeah, that's very nice. So that's what I was trying to come to next was about scholarships that you've spoken. That how expensive it is for students to study abroad, and how important is the role of a scholarship, and what all scholarships are available.
Yeah, it kind of depends on where you would want to do your master's. So if you go to US, you have fewer scholarships, but you have more options to work as a research assistant or a teaching assistant in the college and get some part-time work. So that's the kind of working philosophy in US. In Europe, they do not allow students to, let's say, work as research assistants or teacher assistant. So there are very few possibilities, unless you have a scholarship, there are very few possibilities to make some earnings on the side. So if you have a scholarship, pretty good, depends on what kind of scholarship you have. But if you don't, then the whole master's can be quite a big sum of lump that you might need to invest either from yourself or your parents, which is always hard, because when you graduate, you are not that free anymore. You have a lot of foundations on you have to get a job because you have to satisfy, let's say, the mortgage or loan agreements with the bank. So it kind of restricts you to pursue what you really want to do after graduation, because you're kind of restricted and you have to pay that loan back. So it kind of helps you a lot mentally. If you have a scholarship, just when you come out on the other side, you can make your own decisions rather than being decisions made for you, given the circumstances.
So without the scholarship, how much was your whole master's program coming up to?
So normally, if you don't have a scholarship in the Netherlands, including your living expense, it can be close to 25,000 euros a year. So including tuition fees and accommodation would be 25,000 euros. That would be in Indian currency. Yeah, close to 20 lakhs a year. So that's less than US or UK, because there would be 35, 40 lakhs a year, or even 15 if it's a very good college. But in Netherlands, it's 25,000 euros. In Germany, it's quite cheap, and in Italy, it's quite cheap because the state kind of funds the education, so students' education. So I had a friend in Italy who kind of paid like 1,000 euros a month, which is like a lakh uh, in Indian rupees, which is not much, but the accommodation is of course extra. But so there are a few countries where like students get a lot of benefits from the government. Netherlands is of course not one of those countries. Germany is one of them. Italy is one of them. Some government French institutes are one of them, where you have a very subsidized tuition fees for international students, which is, I think, makes a huge difference in the end.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we move on to the details of your course in masters, which is very interesting, we just give a fair idea to people that how the environment is in the university. Do they, the Indian students in particular, do they face any kind of challenges, like in terms of food, in terms of accommodation, and other concerns?
For international, and not just students, but people as well, they have a very big expat community, at least in Eindhoven. The whole region around Eindhoven is called Brainport region. It's Europe's leading innovative region, where the development of leading technologies are happening right now. So there is a very big expat community. You can actually find a lot. Actually, everything that I can find in India, I can find it here. A bit more expensive, but I can still find it. The only thing I think that bothers a lot of international people is the weather. It can stay cloudy for weeks without you getting, let's say, 5 minutes of sun. So that's quite, let's say, gets depressing at times, because when you're working on assignments for like a month and you haven't seen the sun outside, you kind of want to go out and just be on a beach. So that kind of I think is the only problem. Weather is the only thing that kind of not satisfy you. But other than that, I think there are plenty of shops around where you can find all the stuff you need. Accommodation, they have international accommodations which are a bit expensive than and normally, while the Dutch people have to wait a lot if they have to get let's say, a less expensive accommodation.
Okay. So now coming to your course, will you tell us what was it and what did you learn?
So it was actually a very extensive course that I chose for. Normally, let's say, at the time I joined, it was a very demanding course, because they kind of took two different courses, so control systems and let's say advanced control systems, and they kind of merged it into one subject. So it was very demanding in that way. And in my class, there were only 15 people who were studying that course, both Dutch and international. So initially, I got the idea that I would have to put some extra effort and time uh, into this study to make it what I really want to get out of it, which was kind of nice, because all the subjects and courses were what I liked. What I also liked in Eindhoven, or at least in the Netherlands, is that the industry and the university, and they are very, how do you say, they are very closed. So they are very close. So they have a lot of collaborations. Uh, yeah, students get to work in big companies like Philips, Shell, ASML, OSE on a regular basis. So it's not a one-time thing. They have a lot of projects from the industry. They have a lot of projects from the university that the industry is trying to implement in what they do. So that this is what I've, let's say, not felt while I was studying in India, that the university was kind of a sole entity. But here the university is kind of everywhere. It's kind of in the social culture, it's in the industry, it's everywhere you go you can find a bit collaboration from the university side, which is kind of nice, because that gives you a lot of options to where you would want to do some internships or traineeships in the end.
The course in particular, could you just name a few subjects that came in?
So they were mostly yeah. Also, I think apart from the core courses, you can go for your own elective courses, and I chose for robotics. So I did a lot of control systems, modern robotics. We did model predictive control, so and autonomous control. So it's everyone can do some of the subjects that they really want to do. So it's a mix you can find. Uh, if I tell you my subjects, it might be let's say a bit confusing, because that it might seem that the courses are very one-dimensional, but just because I wanted to pursue my super specialization in that, I chose for those.
So that's kind of they have a flexibility there. So apparently,
Yeah.
in both your colleges, you got this thing of choosing and deciding what exactly you want to do.
Yeah, that's true. In Netherlands, actually, I don't know how is it in other places, but in Netherlands, you can actually go to any course you want. In the university, you do not have to be enrolled to go to a class. So if you find something interesting from computer science, from physics, from mathematics, from applied physics, from, let's say, uh, human interaction. They have a human interaction where human technology interaction. So if that's ethics, so anything you want to do, you can actually go do a course. So there is no there are some pre-requirements if it's a core course. So you need to know some things beforehand. But for most of the courses, you can just go in and check it if it's for you. Do a couple of lectures and then approach the professor if you really feel that that's for you. So it's not like something would be, someone would say, no, you can't do this thing. That's pretty nice in Netherlands, that people are pretty acceptable to all the comments that you have, and they are pretty encouraging to what you really want to do.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's because I think that's what the focus should be, of letting the students explore, because what you may imagine in a particular manner may not turn out to be the same thing. So there has to be that
Yeah, I
flexibility,
think
which is
one
like
of
a
my
beautiful
professors,
thing.
yeah, that's true. One of my professors told me that you know better what you want to do than I know what you want to do. So rather than me explaining what subjects you should do, you should explain me what you are going to do, let's say.
So tell me something. How convenient was it for you to, you know, bag a job after that, after your masters?
So since I mentioned, if this region itself is called, let's say, the brain port of Europe, and because of that, you can easily not, okay, I would say it was fairly easy to find a job in this region than, let's say, for my friends who either are in Germany or in Italy. So for me personally, it was fairly easy because I was already working part-time as a system engineer when I was in my master's. I was working part-time to automate a manual factory to do 24/7 production. So for 9 months, I worked as a part-time engineer, and as soon as I graduated, I kind of got a really good job because the company saw that I do not need the initial investment that the company needs to make to understand the way of working people, how people work in Netherlands. Because if you're coming from outside, normally you take 5 to 6 months to just adjust to the way of working of the country and of the company and of the people inside the company. So that was a really good plus for me, that that I didn't have to wait a long time to find myself a job because I was working part-time during my studies.
So this was when you were already working, and it was like you were into that whole this thing, and you decided upon. That's how you decided upon going for a job. So what about those who wish to study any further? So what's there after masters in this particular subject? What is it? What all fields
Yeah,
of higher studies is
uh,
open up?
in Netherlands they have now a new course. So normally, if after a master's, people go for PhD, so a doctorate. They have introduced here a doctorate, which is basically for the industry. It's called PD-Ing. So it's called Doctorate of Philosophy in Engineering. So it's like uh, a more hands-on approach towards PhD, because in PhD you have to spend 4 years working on a single idea, and in order to develop something that nobody that has worked on before. Uh, in PDing, you actually have 2 years where you collaborate with 4 big companies and do 6 months projects with them, and that kind of elaborates let's say your theoretical knowledge, and also gets you compatible with the bigger companies and the projects that are out there. So that's one thing that a lot of people do here. So instead of going for a theoretical PhD, they go for this practical PhD, let's say. Normally, yeah, so you go for a job, either you go for a PhD, people also find out that in order to encompass the whole uh, subject or the thing they are interested in, they might even have to go for another master's in another stream that kind of uh, makes the whole study complete. So some people also go for a second master's after that in a totally different stream in the Netherlands. So a lot of opportunities which you can do post graduation as well.
That is a lot of information and a lot of you know good hands-on experience that you're telling us, that you're sharing with us. So before we conclude, is there anything that you want to add on which I may have missed?
Uh, I wouldn't say we missed something, because if we start talking about our experiences, you might realize that even if we talk about a single year, we can say a lot of things and we can share a lot of stuff. So yeah, if people want to reach out to me to have a specific, if they have a specific question in mind, I'm happy to answer that. So from my side particularly, what I would say or what I would add to this discussion is, at least in my high school, from my high school to my graduation, we focused a lot on what we would want to become, after studies, and we focus a lot on what we are going to do after studies. We kind of forget that we kind of, we are, how do I say it? We kind of forget to live those 4 or 5 years of our lives to achieve something that we would have in the end later on, which is kind of a sad part, because those years you're not going to get back, and nobody is focusing to tell you that you have to live these years as well, because in the end you might regret that you kind of just focused on a single thing, which in the end, when you in retrospective, when you look back, might even not be that important. So the more important thing is to become a better person every day, and to self-educate yourself, because then we have a lot of access to information right now. So don't miss that opportunity to self-educate, and don't focus everything that you have on your job, because in the end, how you turn out to be, how a person you turn out to be is the more important thing.
Absolutely. Some very precious words for everybody who's going to watch it. So it was lovely talking to you, Ashish. It was very nice.
Yeah,
It was a
same here,
very good
Vilash.
experience. Thank you so much for joining in, for giving your time, to be
Yeah,
this
no worries.
flexible with the
Anytime.
timings and everything.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime. If you need me for more, let me know.
Sure. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All right. Have a nice weekend ahead then. I think it's already Thursday, so weekend
Yes.
is close. Yeah. Have a nice day.
You too. You too. Thank you, Ashish. Bye bye.
Bye.